Okay.
When we come back, Zane will be fielding questions. We have members of Arts Vote here for our BT Breakfast with the Candidates Town Hall. It's 7:09, heading up to 19 degrees today. You're watching BT. Thank you, Andrew Schultz. Yes, we continue with our BT Town Hall. Zane will be fielding questions from Arts Vote.
Thanks, Sarah. We're going to kick things off right now with Ellen. Ellen, your question for Barb?
How does your arts and culture policy differ from the other mayoral candidates?
Oh, I'm going to be honest. I haven't read the other people's policy, so I really can't tell you.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's succinct. Our next question is coming from our friends in Metro Calgary, who we've partnered with. It's a Twitter question. And the question is, do you think Bob Hawksworth's endorsement after his negative campaign towards you and others will help you?
Are you going to come on camera or just answer it now? Okay, you know what? Bob Hawksworth had over 20 years of an incredible career as a statesman. And, you know, his decision to go negative, as people call it, is not reflective of what the tone that I wanted to set in my campaign. So Bob's decision was Bob's decision, and what I feel deeply honored about is the fact that Bob is a man who spent years and years giving and dedicating himself to public service. He is a man of integrity, a man who leads with his heart, and that's why I was deeply honored that he came over to support me.
Our next question comes to you from Mark.
In your platform on arts, culture, and sports, you talk about creating arts incubator spaces in vacant city properties and the construction of a new central library, both of which are great. However, in both cases, you point to the private sector to provide funding, essentially asking corporate Calgary to take a leading role in these projects. With that in mind, in a thriving city, what do you consider the role of the municipal government in supporting arts and culture?
Well, the municipal government needs to make arts and culture a priority. And the city has already set aside money for the library, and I'm saying that I support that funding. The fact is, the previous council has spent the majority of the money, and the next council will be saddled with having to deal with a $60 million shortfall and a $3 billion debt. So, you know, you got to be careful what you're promising. Arts and culture are a priority for me. That's how I was raised, was in the arts arena. And so it's a fundamental value that I have. I'm not going to make promises that I can't keep. The $40 million for the library is there, and the reality is that we are going to have to be very careful with our spending.
Our next question comes to you from Jamie.
So far in this election, we've heard the candidates speak a lot about CADA, the CPO, and specific street festivals when they talk about the arts. We've yet to hear about any controversial types of art, graffiti art, street buskers, and specifically the electronic music scene in Calgary. As mayor, what would you do to positively affect the profile of these arts in Calgary?
Well, okay. I'm watching for my camera there. You know what? I was a journalist, and so I'm all for freedom of speech. However, vandalism, some people talk about graffiti as being vandalism. And so, you know, when you're writing on someone's private property, that is considered vandalism. However, I support freedom of speech, and you know, it's balancing the rights of both sides.
Now our next question is from Alex.
In recent years, studies have shown a strong correlation between the vibrancy and economic health of a city and its art scene. As mayor, how would you go about informing council and the public about the importance of the arts to the economic well-being of the city of Calgary?
I couldn't hear you.
Could you just repeat the question one more time?
Yes. In recent years, studies have shown a strong correlation between the vibrancy and economic health of a city and the health of its art scene. As mayor, how would you go about informing council and the public about the importance of the arts to the economic well-being of the city of Calgary?
That's a really specific question that you're talking about, and it's really just setting a tone. The mayor sets the tone, and the mayor's job comes with profile, and it's a matter of the mayor deciding what issues or what areas the mayor's going to take part in or focus on. And again, I'm just going to go back to the fact that, you know, my whole 21 years in Calgary, I've been a part of the art scene at varying levels, and it's how I was raised. So it's really just about who you are at sometimes. We have mayors who have gone to arts and cultural events, and we have mayors who haven't. So sometimes it's just a matter of showing up, and it's a matter of making it part of the conversation. And that's really what I would do, is make it part of the conversation.
All right. Thank you, artsvote, and thank you, Barb.
Thank you.
Please stay where you are. On the other side of the break, Mike McCourt will be here to deliver the hard stuff.
Great.
I know you're ready for it. All right, don't go away. It's 7:18, heading up to 19 degrees today. You're watching Breakfast Television.
More traffic in about 15 minutes. Right now, it's time for the hot seat. Tara and Zane in the studio.
Thank you, Andrew Schultz, for the weather and the traffic. Now,
I know, he is a man of all trades. Now we're going to head on over to Barb Higgins sitting down with Mike McCourt.
Okay, you guys, thanks. Good morning, Ms. Higgins.
Good
Strange
morning.
but true, we haven't met before.
I know, so odd.
There you go. Well, it's a pleasure.
Pleasure.
Let me start with this. Back on July 23rd, when you announced it, kind of came out of the blue. You kept it pretty much to yourself. And I was curious then, still am, as to whether you had spent several weeks or months sort of pacing up and down your kitchen, saying to yourself, I'd like to do this, and I should do it, and probably could do it, or whether, conversely, you were approached by some folks here in town who said, we think you could do this, and we think you should, and we'd like you to try.
It was the second scenario.
Yeah.
Is that the day that Mr. Bronconnier announced that he was not going to run, I got an email from someone who said, you should consider this, and I was not considering it. And then through the course of the next couple of months, I had people, some of them people I hadn't heard from in years, emailing me and calling me. And, you know, it wasn't something I was thinking of, but because it was people from all walks of life, if it had just been close friends telling me to do this, I would not have done it. But it was people from all walks of life and not-for-profit and business. And so I did start giving it some thought by stampede, honestly. I mean, you know, the month before, I had been asked and I was not considering it. It's not something I was dreaming about. But I did make the decision. I jumped in. I felt that finally I would regret it if I didn't do it.
That would leave you open to the suggestion, Ms. Higgins, perhaps in the raw political sense, that you are therefore, since you were in effect drafted, a candidate as a marionette dancing on somebody else's strings.
I have no idea where you would get that from. I made this decision.
I get it
based
from your admission that you were drafted by other folks, and that this, was not something that you yourself had considered was something you ought to do or could do or should.
Right, and that's how life works, Mike, is that opportunities are presented in life in terms of openings, doors open, you decide whether you're going to walk through them. An election is about people asking you to step forward. People cast their ballot. That's what an election is. And so by people emailing me and calling me who have no political interest whatsoever, that is the electorate. And that's what we're doing on Monday. These were not people with political interests. These were people who were in the community that I had touched base with over many, many years. So, you know, it's an interesting comment you make, but I'll just tell you there's no truth to it.
It wasn't a comment, it was a question.
Okay.
Which leads me to another. You have been accused by Mr. McIver, primarily, and by some of the other candidates, as being a contender with no experience. You have laid out 7 priorities, and you've got your policies in order and all of that sort of stuff. But I wonder about your political intuition and acumen, Ms. Higgins, in the context of a disastrous choice of campaign manager to begin with, and your ready acquiescence to his recommendations in at least 2 cases that you do something which you later said you ought to have. That doesn't speak well, it seems to me, of your political instincts, especially when running for mayor.
Well, I would respectfully disagree and say that when the group that asked me to step forward, we were sitting around talking about, there was no campaign manager in the room when the decision was made.
Yeah, but you picked some guy who was a screw-up. You had to admit that a couple of weeks into the campaign. The question again, political intuition, political acumen.
You know what? I think it's inappropriate to call anyone a political screw-up. And so, with all due respect again, I'm going to push back because this is a man who has plenty of political experience, is trying to run his company and trying to run a campaign at the same time. It was not about political screw-up. It was about time management, and this man is trying to run a company. He jumped on board because he believed in me, And I appreciate that. I have run my entire campaign with volunteers. I jumped in late, and I'm very proud of what my team has done. And I will not stand by and hear you call someone a political screw-up who is volunteering his time and taking his time away from his company. That is a Calgarian who cares about this city.
I can see I irked you with that question.
Yes, because it's inappropriate. This is a man who cares about the city.
But he didn't do a very good job for you, did he?
He did a fabulous job with the time that he had. I mean, you know, journalism is about asking questions without a bias. You're clearly coming from a bias, so I'm going to challenge that.
And with that, we're out of time.
Thank
but I
you.
appreciate you coming in. Thanks, Ms. Higgins.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, Barb, thank you so much.
We have somebody else showing up.
Yes, thank you for joining us today. BT's Breakfast with the Candidates wraps up tomorrow. Rick McCourt will be joining us. And coming up after the break, meteorologist Andrew Schultz will have our full weather forecast. Stay with us.
It's going down tonight. The ladies looking right, dressed up with fancy shoes.
Closed.
Good morning. Welcome back to Breakfast Television. 7:30, heading up to 19 degrees today, but it's a little nippy out here. And
it was a little hot in the studio.
It was a little hot in the studio. We had to step out. Barb Higgins was joining us for our BT Breakfast with the Candidates. If you didn't catch it, please head online to breakfasttelevision.ca. A little hot under the collar. What just happened there?
I don't know what I can say. Well, this is what I don't know what to say. I just say that my experience, I've heard that she was a very pleasant woman, but I just feel that the way things went was not the way she expected or appreciated, and her demeanor changed from the way she came in, and she left with a different sentiment. And I feel that's unfortunate because I really enjoyed my experience with her before her time.
Breakfast
Does that make
Television.
sense?
Well, if that's not an endorsement, to go to breakfasttelevision.ca and watch the full interview.
Certainly check it out.
Hot seat with Mike. And again, it continues tomorrow. Rick McCourt will be in the hot seat with Mike McCourt. We'll do town hall. Right. We'll get to know him as Breakfast with the Candidates rolls on.
Tell us why right now, meteorologist Andrew Schultz, why is it so cold?
It's a hard act to follow.
Woo.
7-day forecast.